Welcome to Awesome Movie Year, the podcast where we take a look back at an awesome year for movies, which is every year. I'm Josh Bell, film critic and writer, and I'm joined by my co-host.
I'm Jason Harris, filmmaker, comedian. And Josh, if this podcast gets too stressful for you and you have one of your fainting spells, we'll happily send you to the Italian countryside.
That sounds nice, actually. Maybe I should fake a fainting spell, much like the protagonist of this film, so I can have a nice vacation.
Correction, I read that wrong. Not the Italian countryside, the Olive Garden on East Tropicana.
Ah, yeah. Well,
not bad.
They don't even have a lake at the Olive Garden there.
You want the lake or you want the endless breadsticks? You got to make tough choices in life.
So. Yeah, I don't know. So we are here at the final pick of our main picks in this special retrospective 20th season, and it is my last pick. I decided to return to 1953, Jason's pick for the least
worst
awesome movie year.
Yeah.
Let's say least awesome. Come on.
No, if it was called worst movie year, that would be my top choice for this.
There were several movies that you enjoyed, but unfortunately, I think this may not be one of them. But I enjoyed 1953 more, and I also thought we should get in a master of world cinema here for this season and a movie that I was interested in seeing. So I picked The Earrings of Madame de from German-French filmmaker Max Ophüls from 1953. And I think maybe I got you guys to watch a movie that you didn't care for. So that's how it went.
But that's okay. I mean, look, in all the research, we'll be in the minority on this one. It's ranked 90th on the current Sight and Sound list, but, they're a bunch of idiots. But, you have, very renowned critics and filmmakers calling this a masterpiece. So David and I will just have to get back to watching people punch each other in the balls and laughing out loud at it.
Yes, you will. And I don't know if I would call this a masterpiece. I mean, I might call it a masterpiece, but from a personal standpoint, I wasn't as immersed and enveloped in this movie as I think many of its biggest fans are, but I definitely think I liked it more than you guys did. I certainly did enjoy it at least more than Bad Boys 2 and Ernest Goes to Camp as far as this season goes.
Well, but
I do love that we can encompass all of those films.
Yeah, that's fine. Hey, if nothing else, it's an hour and 40 minutes. That's the lowest hanging fruit that there is.
Right.
There's obviously other things I liked about this movie, which we'll get into. I didn't hate it. It just stalls out for me very quickly.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, although this is now regarded as a masterpiece, and Jason, as you said, it's on the Sight and Sound list of the greatest films of all time, it wasn't necessarily universally accepted as a masterpiece when it was released. It's tough to find, as I'm sure we talked about numerous times during this actual season on 1953, it's tough to find budget and box office info. I don't know the budget, and the box office figure I found may actually apply to like a re-release, but it grossed $141,847 according to the numbers, which in 1953 might actually be a decent showing, but I think that might be from like 2007. So it was not necessarily rapturously received, though, by critics or by audiences.
It wasn't rapturously received. Not necessarily. It just wasn't.
Right. Well, I mean, I will get to the reviews, but at least one prominent publication did have positive things to say about it. And it was nominated for one Oscar for Best Costume Design, Black and White. It was an adaptation of the novel by Louise de Vilmorin, which had just come out a couple of years earlier. Although it is a very loose adaptation, that novel is set in the 1930s in Vienna, and this is set in the early 1900s in Paris. And the character of the Charles Boyer's character is a general in this film, whereas in the novel, he's simply an aristocrat. Charles Boyer plays the general, Danielle Darrieux as his wife, who sells a pair of earrings to kind of set off the plot. And renowned Italian filmmaker Vittorio de Sica plays an Italian ambassador who becomes her lover. And there's a lot of longing in this film. Lots of longing.
Yeah, so not the first film we've covered with much longing, including one with Charles Boyer before, Love Affair, right? So,
Right, exactly. And Boyer is French, but is better known for all of his work in Hollywood, including movies like Love Affair. I've seen him in several things, but I think this is the first time I've seen him in an actual French film.
but Josh, I got a different date than you as far as when it took place. You're in the neighborhood. Obviously, this takes place in the Belle Epoque, one of the fine times in French culture, economics, and the world. It was a happy place in France at this point in time, and that took place from like the 1870s till World War I, 1913, 1914. From the movie, I had seen that someone said, when they go to the opera and they reference the actress and that play, and then they reference that earthquake in Lisbon, those both took place in 1880. Okay. So using that work, we're right here in the sweet spot, 1880, baby.
Way to go. Yeah, I don't know where I had seen that, but they don't, yeah, you're right. They don't ever specify, they don't say the exact year, but I didn't think about that with the earthquake. And they mention Sarah Bernhardt, the famous stage actress. So
Sandra Bernhardt.
Yeah, wonderful. Sandra Bernhardt. Yeah.
No, not
Sandra Bernhardt, who is, named her. So she's also wonderful. Come on.
She is. See her in The King of Comedy. She's awesome in that movie.
Yeah. So. Not alive during the Belle Epoque, though, probably.
No. But, is that much different than New York and the Lower East Side in the 1980s? So maybe there's some comparisons to be made here, Josh.
Maybe not. Maybe we need a remake of this film that takes place in 1980s New York City. I don't know if that would quite work.
Yeah. I think we're good on not remaking this.
All right. Well, it's already been done, but we'll talk about that later. But American critics, at least, seemingly were underwhelmed with this film. A.H. Weiler in the New York Times said, like its turn-of-the-century decor and costuming, it is elegant and filled with decorative but basically unnecessary little items, which give it gentility and a nostalgic mood, but nothing much more substantial. The principles of the Parisian haute monde involved in this affair of the heart, a lady, her general husband, and her lover, naturally, are well behaved, but unfortunately their problem seems more important to the producers than to a viewer. 3 fine performers such as Charles Boyer, Danielle Darrieux, and Vittorio de Sica contribute polished characterizations in the principal roles, but fail to give insouciance and bite to this standard gossamer romance.
Josh, 2 words I didn't understand in that review. Insouciance?
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of a playfulness, maybe, and a liveliness is what I would say.
And then the one before, what was it? Dormant or something like that?
Oh, the Parisian haute monde. That's French, like high, the fancy world. Yeah, high society. Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
I agree that, look, I love detail, but sometimes if there's nothing going on beyond the detail, that you can get lost in that kind of, like, it loses meaning because there's not much else there. And I could see that as a fair criticism.
Yeah, I guess. I feel like on the other hand, part of what people love, if they do love this film, is Max Ophüls' attention to detail and the sort of sumptuousness of this from a visual standpoint, and the way that plays into the longing. That it is, it can't be expressed very clearly by these characters because they're constrained by all of these social mores. So Ophüls has to kind of express it via the camera, via costumes and set design and things like that. And I feel like you need those details then if you're going to get that emotional response, which obviously you didn't.
Right. But he knocks all that stuff out of the park. I'm just saying, had there been the emotional resonance, it would have even heightened all that stuff. So the camera work's incredible. Like, you can put the waltzing sequence above, and then some of the kind of verticality, like when they're going up and down the stairs in the jewelry shop, like, and you're like, in the 50s, they really, he's a master of that stuff. I do have a question, Josh. The reviewer here explicitly states that the lead actress and De Sica are lovers. I didn't take necessarily that they were lovers, but like you said, there's a longing and they want to be together. But I never got that, like, oh yeah, they're definitely having an affair.
Right. I mean, they're lovers in the sort of emotional sense. I mean, they do have a fairly passionate kiss, at least at one point. So it's not all longing. There's something there beyond that. And I mean, whether they're having sex, I think is something that uh in the 1950s, even in France, you might not have been able to explicitly or even implicitly indicate. And maybe we're meant to think that. Although I tend to agree with you that, I mean, they're not having an affair in the way that we would think of it now, but they are certainly in love with each other. And they do have some physical expression of that. It's not like they're just friends.
Yeah, I mean, I keep going back. Like I said, we've done similar thematic kind of pictures here. I think in 1939, Wuthering Heights is the one that was closest as far as that longing, and that there's a lot of mind games going on in here as well.
Right. Yeah, there is. I mean, and the earrings, the way that they play into that are, I think, really, really well done. But yes, the mind games mainly come from Charles Boyer's character, especially once he figures out what's going on. And Danielle Darrieux thinks she's kind of putting one over on him with the earrings, and he punishes her for that in a way.
Well, Josh, there you go again with your misogyny, your anti-man, kind of take there. She's the one who started the mind games with the earrings. So he's just escalating what she started.
Right.
But you are blaming the man as always, Josh.
I mean, I think what she's doing early on, where she sells the earrings to get some money, but doesn't want him to know. And at this point, there's no affair. It's not that she's trying to hide an affair from him. She's trying to hide that she needed money. And so she makes up this lie that she lost them. And I think she's not intending to play mind games with him when she does that. She's not intending to like torture him. She's just intending to try to get away with it.
She just wants to lie to him flat out that the gift that he gave her on their wedding day has been lost.
Right. But it's not in a way to hurt him. It's a way so she can get the money that she needs. Whereas later on, when he's doing it, he's trying to toy with her. He's trying to hurt her.
Well, one, part of that is that she feels that this wedding day present, yes, she needs the money, but is of so little value to her that that's what she's willing to part with. Right.
True. And I mean, but again, and not in a cruel way per se. I mean, at one point he kind of says later in the film, like, I know that I haven't been a major part of your life. I mean, it seems clear that whatever reason it was that they got married, it was for convenience, right, or social class or whatever. There's a great scene where you see how they sleep in two different bedrooms and they're kind of
so nice.
Yelling across the. Yes, it does look nice.
I called Gina in to watch that part. I was like, doesn't this look great?
You guys like that setup.
Yeah, didn't Katharine Hepburn said the best way to keep a marriage is to buy houses right next door to each other, right?
Right, like Tim Burton and Helena Bonham Carter, didn't they famously do that and have like a tunnel in between them or something?
Oh, they're not together anymore though.
No, but so maybe it didn't save their relationship, but they were for a long time, and I think they did do that.
He's with Monica Bellucci, right? So maybe he just tunneled his way over to that house now.
Yeah,
instead,
exactly.
So.
New tunnels.
But no, I definitely took note of that, like that they're in separate beds, and I was like, oh, is this something like of French, higher upper class? Like we would see that in Britain, very stodgy type, hey, we have separate beds, and I was like,
right.
But these guys got their own rooms. It's nice, man. So
well, they're wealthy, so they can do that.
I'm going to just say I think the mind games were played in equal parts by both Boyer and Danielle there.
All right. So Variety, in their unbylined review, said, Max Ophüls has created a delicate, half-toned study of turn-of-century manners and love. Slight story concerns a general's wife who sells a pair of earrings when she needs the money. The earrings become the motif to keep the plot moving, as the general buys them back from the jeweler and gives them to his mistress. Ophüls gives this a neat photographic framing as he delicately embraces his characters. Main drawback of the film is its outmoded feelings and the rather lifeless agonizings of its puppet-like characters in a fading era when protocol and saving of face was more important than reality.
Man, that's disappointing. That's like the most coherent and well put together review I've heard from the Hollywood Reporter. Usually Variety, sorry, that's what I meant. But usually when you're like in their unbylined review, it's like earrings, fights, countryside. Wow, wow, wow. You know, so like
especially
this is really good.
especially early Variety was really into the slanguage, as they call it, their own terminology. But yeah, some actual insight there, maybe.
Yeah, I was like, what? Wait, are you sure this is Variety? So I agree. I mean, that's what I told you. I just lost emotional connection to this thing a half hour in. I mean, dude, this opening shot through the mirrors, and like you're drawn in right away, and like, well, this dude's working at a very high level. And you know, we spend so much time at the jewelry store in Act One, and then it becomes almost irrelevant for most of the rest of the movie. It just kind of loses its way with me, and I just never got back on track with it.
Yeah, I mean, on the other hand, I feel like what they're saying is that the drawback is these feelings where characters have to emphasize protocol, they have to prioritize saving face. Like that's the whole essence of the film, the idea that they're repressed in all of these different ways because of their social class, because of the expectations of French society at the time, and that they can't express their true feelings, and that the earrings become like a proxy for those feelings, and the emotional significance of the earrings changes over time, even though the physical object is the same. I feel like that's central to the film. And so if that doesn't move you, which it intermittently did for me, but if it doesn't, then you're certainly not going to get anything out of this movie.
I think, to me, going back to Wuthering Heights, I think, you know, again, we are escalating and layering those feelings, and here they just stagnated for me, you know? So that's kind of where I just felt like, hey, man, I get it. 40 minutes in, if I skip 40 minutes and came back, I feel like emotionally we're at the same place. So that was the issue. For the record, I did not skip 40 minutes. I watched the whole movie.
Well, that's good. It's always good when we watch the movie to talk about it.
Yeah. That's kind of like, I checked that off the box when I'm like preparing for the podcast. Did I watch the film that we're going to talk about?
Yeah, it's a very long checklist that you have for the podcast.
That's number one, though.
Yeah, it's a good place for it.
Yeah.
So finally, in France, maybe this was a little more warmly received, although maybe not necessarily, because this review talks about other critics not liking the film, although I'm not sure who they're talking about. So Jacques Rivette, who of course is later a famous filmmaker himself, in Cahiers du Cinéma, said, "I can see how this adaptation could be criticized if it were the work of some professional scriptwriter, but its exceptional merit is precisely, in my eyes, to be a director's adaptation and to make sense only through the film it implies. Le Plaisir," a previous Ophüls film, "had already taught us what subtle and profound transformations Ophüls has the characters undergo under the appearance of fidelity. But it is no longer a question of giving a soul to Maupassant's animal creatures," that previous adaptation, "but to these literary phantoms, whose existence seems to be made up of the very story of their misguidance, a body of flesh and blood, subject to God and sin, whose rule will no longer be a dogmatic code of worldly politeness, but the gaze that society and religion always cast upon them. If one would like to consider the work of this auteur frivolous, he is free to do so. I would rather summarize it as that of a pitiless analyst, whose lying graces do not want to conceal its gravity."
The source material, I think, is like 65 pages, right? Or something very short like that. So.
It is very short. Yes. It's, I mean, maybe it's, I don't know. You may be right about that. I thought I saw it listed as like a novella, in which case it would be a bit longer. But I mean, as I said, they've changed quite a bit. Even, you know, they may have added if it's that short, but they've also changed the setting. They've changed the profession of the male character. They've made a lot of adjustments to the story.
Yeah. With that, Ophüls said himself, he said, besides the earrings, there's very little of the novel left in the film, and then just the senselessness of that woman's life. So he was, you know, making it his own.
Right. And interestingly, Criterion has a lot of, on Criterion Channel, they have a lot of supplementary material. And I did watch the interview with Louise de Vilmorin from 1965, who she does not like this film at all. And she spends the whole
We're in
interview.
good company, Dave.
So a lot of what she's talking about is kind of nitpicky related to her novel. And not only the major changes, but also kind of small details and thematic stuff, but she does also complain that the movie is boring. So I feel like maybe you guys would be with her on that.
Fuck yeah, bro.
Okay.
But Josh, the people on the opposite side, Andrew Saris, said this is the most perfect film ever made, which is ridiculous.
Andrew Saris, a very, very famous critic, said and said that later. I mean, I don't know if I think Saris might not have been working at this time. He started writing for the Village Voice later in the 60s. But that was in like 2007 or something, I think, when there was a re-release of this film.
Right.
And again, it didn't get that rapturous reception initially, but over time, even in like the 1970s, when it was released in England, it started kind of amassing that critical acclaim. And certainly by this point now, again, Sight and Sound, all of that.
I'm glad you brought up England, Josh, because I found quotes from two former Awesome Movie Year subjects, directors that we have talked about, not from England, but also well-known in Europe. Francois Truffaut said that this is similar to Ophüls' 1933 German film, La Belle, stating that the last half hour, the duel in the finale, is a remake, pure and simple. So have you seen that, Josh?
I have not seen that, but that is one of the complaints of the author, that they added that duel in that was not in her book, and she did not feel like that was appropriate.
Mm-hmm. All right. It wasn't even much of a duel when we get down to it, but we can get there. But going to England, our friend Lindsay Anderson, big fan of Lindsay Anderson right there, wrote that the camera is never still. Every shot has the tension of a conjuring trick. The sleight of hand is dazzling but fatally distracting, with a supple, ingenious, glittering flow of images that is aesthetically the diametric opposite of the author's chaste prose. Ophüls has made the film an excuse for a succession of rich decorative displays. In all this visual frou-frou, it is not surprising that the characters become lost and the interior development of the drama is almost completely unobserved. That was pretty insightful, I think, Josh.
Yeah, I mean, again, I feel like they dovetail better than he's giving that credit for. And the way the movie works is by using all that visual sumptuousness to represent the emotion that the characters can't fully express. But I understand if you feel like it's too much and it gets lost. The performances are very restrained. I mean, Boyer especially, I think especially because I've seen him in all these American films where he's very expressive and he is often playing like the French lover. And here he's this kind of buttoned up guy. And even when he plays the mind games, like we were talking about before, he's very stoic about it. And that maybe makes it harder to engage with.
Well, you know how I feel about a lot of the acting around the 1950s. And I like Boyer better when he is more playful and, has more layers. This is, like you said, it's almost like a very, like you said, a kind of stuffed up single note performance, which I have this piece of research with Boyer. He asked Ophüls the motivation for his character multiple times. And Ophüls one day broke down and said, enough. His motives are as he is written that way. So Boyer never asked him again and decided to play his character as being omnipotent in all those scenes, which speaks to those mind games.
Right. I mean, I think it's a one-note character because he's kind of a one-note guy. He's very by the book. He's very following protocol. And he's the one who takes sort of the social class and the expectations seriously. And when his wife deviates in such a blatant way, he has to bring her back in line, is the way he views it, I think.
Yeah, but you would think with that's such a, if those are the things he cares about, this affair would be a black mark on his reputation. And you would think he would maybe show a little more emotion with that. Of course, that doesn't matter that he's having his own affair. That's irrelevant, Josh.
But he's doing it according to like the protocols. And he's fine with her having her affair as long as she doesn't like flaunt it in a certain way. I think that's the thing, is that like there's a way you do these things and she falls in love. That's the other thing, right? We see him see his mistress off on the train and he's just like, okay, bye. Like he clearly does not love her. He's not in love with her. He's had a little fun with her and now she's leaving and he's fond of her, but whatever.
Yeah, that got murky too, to me, but that's okay.
Yeah. So, Jason, I know you hadn't seen this. Had you seen any Max Ophüls films at all?
I hadn't, but I would be happy to watch more. This one, like I said, just didn't do it for me.
Right. Yeah, I have seen Letter from an Unknown Woman with Joan Fontaine, which was one of his American films. I don't remember a whole lot about it. I think I saw it in a film class in college, so it's been quite some time. And it is definitely another movie about romantic longing that I do recall, and very sumptuous. So I would also be curious to see more. I mean, he's certainly this major world cinema figure, and I mean, because of the trajectory of his career, you know, he made his early films in Germany, like that one that you mentioned, and then he fled Germany. He made during World War II. He made films in the United States. He made films in France. And so he's got this kind of wide ranging career. And I would be curious to check out more, but I have not done that. Dave, you don't seem like you're going to explore more of Max Ophüls' career.
You know, you never know. All the movies have nice posters. So,
well, that's what's important. Yeah. So anything else on the background of this film you want to mention, Jason?
Josh, do you have any romantic longings you'd like to tell us about?
No, I'm going to keep them repressed, and I'm going to use the visual representation to have them conveyed to the audience.
So fans of Ophüls include PTA, Paul Thomas Anderson, who's also on the kind of Criterion channel, giving his kind of take on this. I watched Greta Gerwig, and I watched one other interview about it. I forget the second one.
Edgar Wright, is he on there?
Maybe. I don't know. Who could say? It's been a whirlwind, Josh.
Yeah.
Kubrick, I think we see some similar themes even in like Barry Lyndon, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But Josh, we can't end this segment without reciting a poem for the first time ever here on Awesome Movie Year. James Mason wrote this poem about Max Ophüls. A shot that does not call for tracks is agony for poor dear Max, who separated from his dolly is wrapped in deepest melancholy. Once, when they took away his crane, I thought he'd never smile again.
Beautiful.
Pretty good.
There are a lot of long tracking shots in this film. So.
That's pretty good, James Mason.
Good for him. I'm imagining it read in his very distinctive voice.
Is that a hello? Is that James Mason?
Yeah, he does have. I mean, that sounds more like Cary Grant, but he does definitely have that mid-Atlantic accent. So.
A shot that does not call for tracks. That type of thing.
Yeah. We'll come back and talk more of our general thoughts on the earrings of Madame de. Welcome back to Awesome Movie Year. In this episode of our retrospective 20th season, we're back in Jason's favorite year, 1953, to talk about Max Ophüls, The Earrings of Madame de. And Jason, I know you were disappointed, but I feel like you think it started well. It was it grabbed you from the beginning.
It definitely did. So one of the things I had read is Ophüls, in his original kind of concept for this movie, wanted to shoot everything in mirrors and like kind of misdirect shots and everything. I don't know if that's making sense, but he never wanted, he was, and he does obscure a lot of stuff. Like every time you hear the person's last name, he, blocks it with sound or someone crossing or whatever. So he was going to shoot this whole thing in mirrors, which I think was pretty incredible. Everything was going to be shot through mirrors on walls and other locations, but that was rejected. But I think that would have been really unique. I've never seen a full movie done that way. Like I said, like he's about as smooth as you can get as a photographer. His shot selection, design, and the movement of the camera is really awesome. And yeah, I just think it, once we kind of set the lay of the land, it just kind of got away from me as early as when Boyer puts Lola, his mistress, on the train, because we follow her to Constantinople and we see how she loses the earrings and this and that. And it's just the focus of that is, okay, so are we just going to focus on wherever the earrings go, which we move away from? It just kind of gets a little muddled and never regains its footing to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I did find it a little odd that I think, like you, as we start following the mistress to Constantinople, I thought, oh, okay, we're going to shift and we're going to follow this person and then we'll follow another person. And that's not really what happens. You see her go and she loses the earrings gambling, and then they're pawned in a pawn shop and Vittorio de Sica's character purchases them. And then we never see the mistress again. with Charles
Right.
Boyer at one point when he figures out what's happened and that the earrings have come back because she has sold them, he says something like, "Oh, I guess she's not doing as well as I hoped." But he doesn't really give it much more thought than that. So again, I think this goes back to what I was saying earlier, where he doesn't really care about this lady. He had his little bit of fun with her, and now he's sending her off, and that's the end of it. That's how you have an affair. You don't get emotionally invested in it. It doesn't last for very long, and then you forget about the person as soon as it's over.
Now you're talking, baby. Huh?
Mhm.
So, the way that he gets the earrings back is someone brings him to the jeweler who they were originally sold to, Remy, right? And,
Yes.
Remy brings him back to Boyer's character and says, "Hey, this is embarrassing, but I'm going to just tell you what happened. Your wife sold these to me. I don't know how they ended up back in my hands, but I figured you might want to buy them back," right? So it's at that point, the rigmarole, I feel like, starts to unwind. And I'm okay with that. But I feel like Danielle, or Louise, shall we say. By the way, did you know that in Ophüls movies, many of the female protagonists all start with the letter L? In this, both the women are Louise and Lola. Did you know that, Josh?
I did not, but now I do.
It's a fun fact for you.
Sure is.
But I feel like, it becomes, maybe as an audience member, obviously it's clear to us, but I feel like there's enough hints there that she should be picking up, like, hey, this dude's onto me. He knows what I did. And she just makes it worse and worse for herself in ways that are like, like, come on.
Really? I don't know. I feel like there are, I never thought that she should have picked up on it, or if maybe she should have. I mean, obviously in the audience, we know what's going on, so it may seem obvious to us, but I think also she is in some ways willfully oblivious. Not that she's dumb, but that she really wants to believe that she can make this work. Because especially the more she falls in love with the Baron, Vittorio de Sica's character, the more she is determined to have everything. Basically, she obviously can't give up her marriage, would give up her status, I don't even know what kind of, how you would have a divorce at this period in this place, but I'm sure it's not easy. So she has to stay in the marriage, but she obviously wants to be in love with the Baron. She wants them to be able to be together. And so I think especially late in the movie, when she puts on this ruse where she says, "Oh, look, I found the earrings," after the Baron has given them to her.
Yeah, terrible
right.
work.
It's clearly a very ineffective ruse, but she is so smitten with the Baron, and she is so consumed with the idea that she must be able to wear these earrings that now have this level of significance that they never had before, that she's desperate to find any way to do that. And I think she does at that point believe that, I don't see why there's any reason for her to know that the way that the earrings made their way to Constantinople is that her husband bought them back from the jeweler and gave them to his mistress, and that he knows about it. I think for her to think, oh, the jeweler must have just sold them to somebody who went to Constantinople, is a much more reasonable assumption.
That's fair. I just think there's enough hints with the behavior that, he's onto her, but that might be just because I'm in the audience and everything. So,
right.
The thing with the Baron, De Sica, I think, one of the most important directors ever, right?
Yes.
Bicycle Thieves. And I feel like he's the best performance in this film. What do you think?
I think the performances are all decent. I think maybe he gets to be the most expressive because he, as a person, is the freest. He is not married, and he's a foreigner in this country.
Right.
He's able to be a bit bolder. He's very bold at the beginning, right? He runs when he first sees her. He runs after her at the train station to try to talk to her and loses her. And then when they have a little carriage accident, and he goes up and talks to her very brazenly. So I think he's able to show more emotion because the character is able to show more emotion. And it's a good performance, but I think the other performances are good too. And I think it's harder as an actor to convey repressed emotion than to simply express what the character is feeling.
Yeah, Danielle Darrieux, Louise, who a veteran of more than 110 films, including Persepolis, which we covered.
We did.
I just felt like, this was in that very stilted acting style of that time, which kind of I'm not a fan of, and kind of took me out of her performance. So yeah, I wasn't thrilled with that. But you talk about how, she wants to be in love with him, but she does, go away trying to, hey, let me get this guy out of my system. And then they go on this whole letter writing situation. And she's like, I'm more in love with you now than when I was seeing you, that type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, she tries to get over him. But what I'm saying is that she wants to be, once she accepts she's in love with him, what she wants is to be able to have it all. She wants to stay in her marriage, but she wants to have this affair, however we want to categorize it. She wants to spend time with the Baron. Maybe they're not going to have sex because maybe that's not something that could be done at the time, but she wants to be able to spend as much time as possible with him and to feel close to him. And the earrings are something that allow her to feel close to him. And that's why she kind of goes through that ridiculous ruse in order to be able to wear the earrings when we know, like, oh, what are you doing? This is just going to make things fall apart, which is in fact what happens.
So this is a commentary on materialism?
No, I think it's not, because it's interesting that the earrings, it's not even, I mean, even though there is a lot about like their financial value, and one of the running kind of jokes here is the way that the jeweler keeps getting paid for the earrings over and over again, because they keep coming back to him and he keeps selling them back to Charles Boyer. But I mean, I think what it's about is the idea that this item that doesn't inherently have an emotional content to it can change so drastically in what it means to people, right? It begins as it was this wedding present. And as you said, she clearly doesn't care that the husband gave it to her for their wedding, because
it's just kind of sad to begin with.
It is. But as we've established, it's this marriage of convenience. It's possibly even arranged, who knows? And so she's going through, in that great opening shot where you just see her like through the mirror and you just see her hand, she's going through all of her possessions, determining what can I sell to get the money that I need, that I don't really care about parting with. And she lands on these earrings. So they mean nothing. And yet by the end of the movie, they mean more to her than like literally anything, because they represent the love that she has for the Baron. I feel like that's the most emotionally affecting aspect of the movie.
Yeah, I wasn't emotionally affected by it at all. It's like, dude, if you want to be in love, be in love. Don't worry about the earrings. But, that's me as a modern, progressive, white, cis male, Josh.
Right. I mean, and you can't, the point I think is that you can't do that in this, or she can't. The people in this time, in this social class, they cannot do that. And all she's got is the earrings. But I mean, I wasn't super emotionally invested either. I think I was more like, oh, that's so clever how he's using the earrings to symbolize that. And wow, look at the way that they're really like changing meaning over time. And I wasn't swooning over this movie like many people are, but I think I had more appreciation for it than you did.
Probably. The one thing I did appreciate, like I said, the shot design, execution. That sequence where Boyer is out on maneuvers, so Sica and Danielle have like the time to themselves, and we just see him in this waltz sequence from one ballroom to the next. That's like, put that up against any in film history as far as like editing, pacing, beauty of shot. Like that to me is like, that's how you use a visual to create the emotion of the heightening of a relationship.
Right. I think it really does. That points to the way that the visual style is enhancing the emotion, because you see, it's a great way to show the passage of time as they shift from one of these balls to another, and you see their growing affection for each other, and they're talking about, oh, it's been 3 days since we saw each other, it's so long, and the way they're kind of holding on to each other. And then eventually we see that at the last ball, they're like the only people left, and the musicians are leaving, and the guys snuffing out the candles, and they're still dancing because they're just so enraptured with each other. That sequence is fantastic, and I think it's a great example of the way that this dazzling visual style does convey emotional content, not just performance.
Well, that one does, but I think some of the others don't. They don't work as well for me. I feel like that one is like the perfectly executed one, but a lot of the other sequences are lesser versions of that and didn't work as well for me.
I guess. I mean, another shot that
No,
really...
you can't guess. I'm telling you. It
Right.
didn't
No,
work
no,
as
no.
well
I
for
mean,
me.
I think that sequence, the dance sequence, really stands out. I mean, and not just to us, but to everyone who talks about this film.
Right.
And so it's certainly a level above any other visual touch that Ophüls brings. But I thought there were a lot of other... The one other shot that really struck me was Jason, you're talking about how she writes these letters. She tries to forget about the Baron, so she goes on this journey, this trip to various places in Italy, and she's always going from one to another because she can't outrun her feelings. And he's writing her all these letters and never receiving a response because she writes her responses and then she rips them up and throws them out the window of the train. And we see her throw this letter, the fragments of this letter, out the window, and the wind is kind of blowing it, and it morphs into the falling snow on the trees outside the train. And I thought that was really, really beautiful.
Agreed. That was very nice. And I'm glad she didn't say, do you want to see the most beautiful thing in the world? And just show a plastic bag blowing in the wind.
Okay. I didn't expect an American Beauty reference in this episode. So Dave, I know you did not care for this film. Was there anything that you liked about it?
I like the idea of it. I really like the idea of following the earrings around and how they make their way back around and everything. After I finished the movie, I started like reading about it and reading people's reactions to it. And I was just like, oh, is that what you got out of this? It's like, oh, okay, cool. I just got nothing as I watched the movie though. It looks amazing, but that's pretty much like all I really got.
I feel like there's value to that, right? It's a visual medium.
Sure.
But absolutely. I mean, that means you could watch it with the sound off and no subtitles and get the same thing out of it, and that shouldn't be the case.
I mean, yeah, okay. Like
there's a written script with dialogue that
it's interesting. Elsewhere, I didn't quote this part, but elsewhere in the Jacques Rivette Cahiers du Cinéma review, he basically says what you have essentially said, that like we didn't even need the screenplay here. He's like, let's not even talk about the contributions from the screenwriter. It was unnecessary or something like that. So, I mean, I don't think that you could fully get everything out of this if you watched it with the sound off and no subtitles. But I think to say that you could get so much out of it that way, and even the emotion, is a compliment.
I guess. Josh, if Dave and I are on the side of Jacques Rivette and you want to go against him, that's fine.
No. I mean, he's saying it as a positive.
I know.
And
I'm kidding with you.
Right. Yes. But
I know, Jason, you mentioned the ending earlier with the duel. When that happens, did either of you guys laugh? Because I was laughing throughout that sequence because of the way they're all stilted and walking with their, I don't know. It was funny to me.
Yeah, I can understand that. And it looked like we're not going to shoot each other, but we're going to shoot targets to see.
That's what I thought too. Yeah.
Right. To see who the best duelsman is. I thought that could have made it. Again, it's so ridiculous that they even went to a duel. This was totally unnecessary. And that to me, I don't think connected the way it was supposed to. But so what happens is the earrings change hands 18 times in this film. Right. And then we end with this duel, and I want to talk about the ending because she goes, Louise, and basically sells everything she owns, her furs and all this other jewelry, just to get the earrings back. And she's got them back, and now she just goes and drops them off at a church to kind of be like, hey, I need to make things right, so I'm going to give this to a church, because churches have a lot of uses for earrings, and
so they're very valuable. They can sell them.
I know.
Proceeds.
I know. So she goes, and we see her going to the countryside to see what's going to happen and try to stop the duel. And she gets there too late, and there's one gunshot, and then we hear, why didn't anyone shoot back? And then she faints again, and that's the end of the movie. And we see, a title card at the church, like gift from Madame Day or whatever it is. I did not find that an effective ending. Did you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the ending of the book is, but I know that it's not this because the author was complaining about it. But I mean, I didn't find it laughable at all. I think the point is, and Jason, you're saying like, why would they even engage in a duel? And I think that's part of the point, is that this whole social structure like requires them to do this ridiculous thing that the general, now having been wronged in a way that he can't overlook. he could have, the affair could have continued in a certain way, but now that it's been publicly flaunted, he cannot overlook it. He must challenge this guy to a duel. I think that's part of the tragedy of it. And even though he survives, I mean, we assume that the reason that there is a single shot is because he has shot and killed the Baron, and the Baron does not get to shoot back. So even though he survives, though, he's kind of ruined his own life here because of his weird sense of honor, or their society's weird sense of honor. So I thought it was a tragic ending that is meant to be part of this sort of doomed love story. Is it like perfect, or I no, it's not. And I don't know that I was, I wasn't crying at the ending or something. I feel like a lot of people are very emotionally invested in this and might get to that. But I thought it was like the way it has a sense of inevitability for what this kind of story was.
There's an original ending that they filmed but didn't release, where a nun passes, from the church, passes the earrings to a young woman marrying a general. This was meant to create a circular structure for the film, with a young woman representing the next Madame de. Max Ophüls felt it weakened the film when it was finished and personally cut it. I think that's an interesting ending.
Yeah, I like the way that it ends here, because that almost makes it feel like it's a horror movie and the earrings are cursed or something like that. And I don't think that's what we're meant to believe. It's not about the earrings. It's about the emotions of these particular,
about the earrings.
But it's not. It's about the emotions of these particular characters and how the earrings become like a receptacle for those. But the earrings themselves have no significance.
Well, to me, I disagree, because this is showcasing yet this material is part of a recurring cycle, like it says. And, this is just going to happen to another group, another couple, another, like you said, the societal values of the time. This is just going to keep repeating itself.
Yeah, but not in exactly the same way with the exact same earrings. I think the way it ends here is better. But
I really thought this movie was going to be like, I think there was that movie like $20, where like it was like an indie movie. You
wanted this to be more like a third tier 90s indie movie.
Well, no, but I'm saying structurally, the idea was like, here's a $20 bill and we follow the character who has it, and then it gets passed to the next character, and it keeps going like that. And that's how this was set up. That's why I'm saying that's how it was, Josh. You can't say it wasn't. It
definitely was.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with you that it is a little weird that we never see the mistress again, but I didn't expect that it would like veer off into a bunch of unrelated characters and just go from one to another. I thought the mistress would kind of circle back around to be part of the main story.
Yeah, to me it was, and I'm not saying it would have been like 50 characters or whatnot, because I didn't know they were going to change hands 18 times. But you spend so much time at the beginning, like I said, with the jeweler, and then you see the jeweler's son, who has no value to the entire story.
It's a little comic relief bit. That's all it is.
Yeah, but they spend a lot of time on him, and then we don't get back to them until like an hour later. We do see the jeweler again in between, but that's what I'm saying. Structurally, it's just a little unsound for me, but there was some good humor in it. I'll give you that, Josh.
All right. Well, I feel like we should rate this one out of 5 earrings.
Right? Okay.
You ready?
Okay.
Yeah. How do you want to rate it, Jason?
I give it 2.5. I mean, story-wise, interest-wise, it was a flat 2 for me, but the technical merit brought it up to another half star. So I'm going to give it 2.5, and I'm going to watch it with the sound off and no subtitles next time.
Nice.
So.
Okay. Yeah. I was sort of on the fence. I feel like it's justifiably beloved, but it didn't move me in the way that it, I think, is meant to. So I'm going to give it 3 out of 5 earrings, but I did appreciate it, I think, a bit more. And I would.
But that's fair, Josh.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Dave.
Yeah, I would watch more Ophüls as well, if that's what.
Yeah, I would like to. I mean, and again, even the other one that I have seen, it was so long ago that I don't really remember it. So, Dave, how would you rate this?
Well, I feel like I've got the perfect amount of earrings too.
Yeah.
So yeah, there you go. Also, I would like to watch $20. So I'm putting it on my watch list.
Yeah,
that sounds right. Dave, Jason, and I will watch more Ophüls films. Dave will watch $20.
I'll watch $20. I've never seen it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
we'll come back and talk about the legacy of the earrings of Madame de. Welcome back to Awesome Movie Year. In this episode of our retrospective anniversary season, we are here in 1953 for Max Ophüls, The Earrings of Madame de. And I think the most important legacy of this film is that Jason still hates 1953.
That is easily the most important legacy. The second most important legacy, of course, is that among many others in the cast of 20 Bucks, you have Brendan Fraser, Shohreh Aghdashloo, Steve Buscemi, and Melora Walters. This is and Gladys Knight. I mean, this is a who's who, Josh.
What if those
Christopher
people?
Lloyd.
What if those people starred in a remake of The Earrings of Madame de?
I mean, now you're talking. So
awesome movie year, 1993. Let's go.
Yeah. There was a remake of this film in 2001, another French film that does not seem to be very well known. And I think all the reviews I saw on Letterboxd were in French. So I don't know if it even ever made it to the US, but it looks like it was possibly more faithful, or at least it was set in the time period of the book rather than the shifted time period of this film. So certainly not well known. I feel like it's tough whether we love this film or not. By 2001, it had already, I think, been on the Sight and Sound poll. It's tough to be like, I want to remake one of the greatest films of all time. Like, who's out there remaking, Citizen Kane or Vertigo? Seems like a bad idea.
Gus Van Sant with Psycho.
Well, yeah. And how did that work out for Gus Van Sant?
On that Sight and Sound poll, you mentioned Edgar Wright. Wes Anderson, who obviously you can see a lot of influences here, also ranked it in as one of his favorites.
Yeah. Certainly beloved by a lot of filmmakers. You mentioned those Criterion videos, Greta Gerwig as well. This is actually one of Max Ophüls' final films. I mean, he was a major figure in world cinema, as we said, in Germany, in the US, and in France. But he only made one more movie after this in 1955, Lola Montez.
Another female with an L, Josh.
Right, yeah, Lola. And in fact, the same name, as you said, as the mistress, I guess, in this film is also named Lola. So
he died shortly after is what you were going to say.
Yeah, in 1957. And it was interesting to me. I mean, he is this major figure. He was nominated for 2 Oscars, but never for directing. He was nominated for art direction for Le Plaisir and for the screenplay of La Ronde, did not win, but never nominated for a directing Oscar, which was
both of which he directed those films.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm saying, is that even though he was known for directing and, filled other positions in those films, the directing was not what had got him nominated.
Yeah, definitely an interesting figure. And I mean, I think, if you're a fan of the way like PTA or Wes Anderson, designs a shot, like this is a guy you want to watch right there, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can see, I feel like Phantom Thread specifically, as far as Paul Thomas Anderson goes, the influence here.
Boyer, we've talked about 4 Oscar nods, one of the great leading men. We talked about him in Love Affair, our Valentine's Day episode. I think Algiers might be, or The Garden of Allah. Would you go with that as your next one? Gaslight, I think, would be your pick, right?
Oh, yeah. Gaslight is great. My personal pick is Clooney Brown from Ernst Lubitsch, which is Lubitsch's final film, and with Jennifer Jones and Charles Boyer, which is just like a really, really, really funny romantic comedy that I love. But he did a ton of stuff in France and the US. I feel like, despite being French, he is better known for his English language films.
I agree.
He was nominated 4 times for the Best Actor Oscar, had a long career. And I think we didn't mention this in our Love Affair episode, but he was the inspiration for Pepe Le Pew.
I was going to mention Pepe Le Pew and, talking about, people who are having affairs. He's not a person, but he had plenty of affairs in this Belle Epoque. But Josh, you brought up Boyer's ability to do comedy. And I think I think he's so adept at that. And that's like a miss for me. Not that he did a bad job, but maybe you want to cast someone else in a role like this and let Boyer do what he does.
Yeah, maybe. I think, especially in those Hollywood films, or even in Gaslight, where he's the villain, but he's a sort of like devious, villain who's enjoying his villainy kind of thing. He has that insouciance.
Yeah, he's
films.
So charming, right?
Yeah.
And we're not getting that here. We're getting that very kind of stuck, uptight kind of guy. But that's okay. We'll accept it. Danielle Darrieux, like I said, 110 movies. She played the grandma in Persepolis. 8 Women. That was one that was popular about 20 years ago. I remember that.
Yeah, that's a Francois Ozon movie. She worked, I think, almost exclusively in French films. She had brief forays into Hollywood earlier in her career, but I feel like we've talked a handful of times about actors like this. Her credits span from 1931 to 2010. I mean, that is just an amazing longevity to have as an actor. And I don't know if we talked about her in our episode on Persepolis, but she did. That was one of the final movies that she appeared or did a voice. She did a voice in that film, but just amazing.
Yeah, that is. And she lived till 100, so good for her. So, Sica, I mean, we're going to get to Sica at one point in time. Director, diplomat, actor. I mean, if you like neorealism film, this is the guy, right? So he's as influential as anyone there is. He's got honorary Academy Awards for, I'm going to butcher this, Suishia, Josh? Is that how you?
Shoeshine is the English language
title. Yeah, Shoeshine, which is, when I was reading about him, Pauline Kael, if you want to see why she's so revered as a writer, her writing on Shoeshine is amazing. It's really worth checking out. Bicycle Thieves, one of the most important movies ever made, won an honorary Oscar and everything. So, and then he's got 2 foreign film language Oscars. But Shoeshine was the first foreign film to be recognized by the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. And also, I think Bicycle Thieves was one of the reasons that they put together the Best Foreign Film Award.
Yeah, Bicycle Thieves won an honorary Oscar because there did not exist a foreign language film category at that time. So it was essentially the best foreign language film that they decided they wanted to have, and later on established that category in part because of that. And it was number 1. Speaking of Sight and Sound, it was number 1 in the very first Sight and Sound poll in 1952.
Yeah. He's got a Palme d'Or, a Golden Bear, and a BAFTA to go along with these Oscars, and an Oscar nomination as an actor for playing Major Rinaldi in Charles Vidor's 1957 adaptation of A Farewell to Arms by Papa himself, Ernest Hemingway.
I think I didn't realize how extensive an acting career De Sica had. I knew, of course, his work as a director, and I kind of figured this was one of those cases that happens sometimes where like a major director asks like a favor of another director. Hey, I feel like you would be perfect for this part. Would you be in my movie? And they agree to it. But he has a very, very extensive filmography as an actor, including in some of his own films, which I just obviously it passed me by. But I thought that was interesting because we don't think of him that way mainly.
Yes, but now that you know, you can De Sica it out, Josh.
I sure can. That's really, I feel like, the note to end on, unless you have anything else to say about the legacy of this film, Jason.
I had an earring when I was 9 years old. I got my ear pierced.
Did you did you infuse that earring with romantic longing?
Oh yeah, maybe at 9, maybe by the time I was like 11 or something. Alison Wasco, yeah, I definitely did. So
yeah, I too had an earring. Well, multiple. You wear different ones, right? But not anymore. So maybe.
But did you like the hoop or did you like the stud?
I usually think I went with the hoop. Yeah, but no dangling diamond earrings at that time. But you never know what the future might hold. So we'll
Dave,
see.
you ever have an earring?
I haven't, but I would like to see you two have a duel over the next 1953 episode.
Yeah, I think that might be the case if we ever do another one. Jason's going to get fed up. Oh. He's going to bring an old-fashioned pistol to the podcast recording.
It's been building between us for a while, Josh.
Yeah. So that is the earrings of Madame De, and that is this episode of Awesome Movie Year. You can share your romantic longing with us online and on social media.
Please do. We're here to cuddle you online and in social media forms. AwesomeMovieYear.com, Awesome Movie Year on Facebook and Instagram. I think we're going to end our X account. Have we decided for that?
Yeah, we might at least put it on pause. I feel like it's probably the right thing to do. So.
Yeah, that's the only right that we want to be involved with when we get to X. I'm Jason Harris Comedy, or Jay Harris Comedy on all the socials. Go for Jason on Letterboxd. Come out to Jimmy Kimmel's Comedy Club. See me do some comedy late night on a Thursday where I have the residency. And I don't know if you know this, Josh, but at one of my trivia nights, we had basically an entire Awesome Movie Year round recently. It was like films of 1996 or something along those lines. And it was really brought all my worlds together, and I feel really good about that.
That's lovely. We do love fun facts here on Awesome Movie Year, so that works well for trivia. You can find some old stuff from me at joshbellhateseverything.com. I'm at Josh Bell Hates Everything on Facebook, at Signal Bleed on Blue Sky, and on Letterboxd. And if you're on Letterboxd and you watch this film or any of the films we talk about on the show, tag your review Awesome Movie Year. We would love to know what you think. And check out our producer David Rosen's awesome podcast, Piecing It Together.
Check out Piecing It Together wherever you listen to podcasts and follow us on social media at PiecingPod.
Jason, what's in our next episode?
We're going to do an audience choice, Josh. We put up a poll. We gave our listeners 3 years to choose from. There was such overwhelming response. We just narrowed it down to 1980. And from 1980, you sided with Dave, and we're all here for that. Surely you wanted us to cover Airplane. So we will be doing that next time.
So tune in next time for Airplane, and thanks for listening to Awesome Movie Year.
Thank you for listening to Awesome Movie Year. Make sure to follow Awesome Movie Year on Facebook, at Awesome Movie Pod on Twitter, and at Awesome Movie Year on Instagram. And if you like the show, review us and rate us with 5 stars on Apple Podcasts.
An All Points West production, produced by David Rosen in Las Vegas.
Ones and twos and twos and ones. Here we go. Let's have some funs. Okay, it's working.
Okay.